Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. Just being sure we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series finale of 12 Monkeys. A phenomenal finale. Holy shit, this was so fucking good. I don't care. I have to say it like that. Obviously, if you have not watched the finale, which includes both parts, is what I'm going to be talking about. Like, just know that was phenomenal. If you haven't watched it, why are you listening to this? Just go watch the episode. You don't even have, you don't even have to come back and listen to it. Just know that it's freaking amazing and it's well worth your time. So obviously, I'm going to go head first into spoilers going forward. I'm going to try and talk about everything kind of in order and break everything down. But I mean, obviously, like going forward, I'm going into spoilers. So if you have not seen the finale, not listen to this, this has been your last warning. So holy shit. Everything falling into place the way it did, it was so beautifully done. Ranging from the very beginning when Ethan pops up like that, I was like, that's crazy. I wonder at what point in time did he do that? Like go to Jones, because a part of me thinks, I'm kind of skipping around here, but it kind of makes you think because of the ending, it kind of, because the whole thing is kind of like a cycle thing, but it makes you wonder at what point in his timeline did he go do that? Because for him, it's like he understood why Jones did what she did, because it's like he's literally done the same thing, because it's like not doing anything makes you feel like you're the reason why that person dies, because he tried everything to save the person he loves, and he knows that's why Jones did what she did, was all for Hannah. Yes, there's a whole argument and like, well, it's also for the 7 billion, but it's also for like, no, it's for Hannah. So, and then Joan saying that line I thought was so good of like, for the longest time she never understood why it worked, why time travel worked with Cole and no one else, and now it makes sense because she used her own DNA to kind of make the sequence. Hence, Cole being her grandson made him eligible, and it's like, that's what, and it's like, oh, that's so beautiful, a way to tie this all back and explain why it always had to be Cole to be the first time traveler. But then you have everyone's like opinions about the whole situation. Jennifer's like breaking down, and it's breaking your heart because she's like, I'm so sorry, Cole, I've led you to this moment and I had no idea which Cole. Is like, no, it's okay, Jennifer. Cassie's breaking down because it's like, no, we got to find another way, which Jones is like, this is the only way that's in front of her. She's like, no, time owes Cole, after everything he's had to sacrifice, it owes me, it owes all of us. And you just see her heartbroken because it's like, this is the man she loves, and he's gonna not only, because what they were originally had planned, like, yeah, that sucked, but it would be so much better than this alternative, because this meant erasing him from history. I mean, that's a lot to take in, where it's just kind of like, I have to erase myself. You can't exist at any point in time. You can't exist. That, they talked about doing that to Olivia, and now it's like, that's going to happen to Cole. Like, and I thought they did a beautiful job explaining it, being like, the disease was related to the cure. That being, you can make the argument that Cole was both, he was the disease. The disease created the cure, which the cure ended up being what created the disease in the first place. And just that line from Cassie, it just makes you go, it left you heartbroken with her being like, I had to kill 7 billion people, but their lives don't equal Cole's for her. It's like Cole is worth more than those 7 billion, especially after everything he's done. Because once again, that's the person you love, And so Cole does what he does, obviously giving his speech to basically Cole from season 3's premiere, using the vest, even saving Jennifer. And that line, when he says it again, it gives you more context now, because you're like, the exact line is like, she's like, so which Cole are you? He's like, the last one I'll ever be. I'm like, oh my God. Like, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is Cole. At the time I was like, oh yeah, that's Cole at the end of all of this, obviously. That's the one that visited him. And it's like, nope, not only that, like that had such a heavier meaning that we obviously now went with the context. We know what that line meant. And it's like, oh, that's so heartbreaking. And so what it comes down to, and I love that line between Cole and Cassie, where Cassie is like, oh, you have a plan? He's like, yeah, I have a plan. Why are you laughing? Why do you think it's so funny? She's like, I mean, you've never had a plan before. That is kind of true. He's kind of always winged it. He's never really because he always kind of rushed forward. So, and it never came up because obviously they kind of skipped through a lot of that stuff. But I guarantee you future Cole, because causality and everything like that, didn't remember the nut shot. Because he was like, yeah, I should have remembered that. He still didn't remember it, I guarantee. They didn't show it, but I'm pretty sure he did. I feel like if he had remembered it, they would have made a point to kind of show that off a little bit. That's like, oh yeah, he avoided the nut shot, but nevertheless. And it's just kind of like, oh, because like I said, a lot of that, like during season 3, I don't think it really clicked in my head to think, that would be something from future point. Like I thought all of that was referencing Ethan, and maybe back then at the time I didn't really think that because that was like the beginning of the season, and when it came time to talk about the entire season, I don't think I went back to realize that had nothing, because it's like, oh, you think all this conversation was leading up to what's going to happen to Ethan being the witness and stuff like that. It's like, no, it's to this very moment where Cole is, where he has to kind of erase himself from the timeline. But it's impossible to do, because to put in all the code they need and stuff like that, it would take them years. They don't have years, they have hours, and they can't go back in time and do that because of causality, because if they mess with the machine back then, it won't help them get to where they are now. So kind of like the whole loop thing of like, you'll mess with that loop and they won't get to where they are. Basically, if they try to answer it back then, they'll make it so that they never got the answer here in the first place. Time travel, right? And so Cassie suggests for him to go to get help from one particular person. He's like, no, I made a promise. And he goes to get Ramsey. And I was like, oh, dude. Because at first I was like, oh, why is Ramsey fighting? It's like, well, this is Ramsey. This is a Ramsey that's dealing with the fact is that, him and Cole were about to have their whole showdown and everything like that. But then Cole breaks down and explains everything. It's like, yeah, let's take that bitch down. If we're both going to be at the end of this, like you died back then and I got to get erased from time, we're going to take that bitch Olivia down with us too. I love that little moment. Like at first I was kind of like, oh, it kind of makes sense because Cassie and Ramsey are there and they're kind of like, hey, because I mean, for one, they haven't always seen eye to eye. They've kind of always been at odds. Obviously, there's a time in season 2 they were kind of on the same side. Because let's not forget that this is the Ramsey that was, trying to kill Cassie to make sure that Ethan wasn't born. So there's that whole dilemma in itself, but they work together and stuff. I love like Jennifer, but like, holy shit balls, and he's like, it's good to see you too, Cocoa Puffs, and it's just like, and even like Jones is like, are you out of your goddamn mind? But it's like, hey, this is part of the plan, we got to do this. And it's so fucking good. Everything they do in their plan, like getting the car, which has so much monumental weight, because it's like, oh yeah, it was like his dad's car. It was something his dad and his mom worked on together, and him and Ramsey are there. It just kind of like, oh, it's so good. He finds the ring, which is a beautiful thing, because it's like that was a ring that his dad wanted to give to Hannah, but like that wasn't the life that they could have. And he gives her, like, it's so symbolic on so many different levels, because it's like, oh, they could never have that life because of what Hannah knew, because of the whole causality situation. But this is them, and like that ring wasn't able to be given to the person it was meant for, and now it kind of can be in a sense, because now Cole's giving it to Cassie, the woman he loves. So it's just interesting how it works like that. Kind of almost stays in the family in a sense. So. I just think that's kind of beautifully done. And then when Cole, like, the whole, like, I love what Jennifer does with Olivia being like, oh yeah, if you modify your symbol a little bit, it looks like a little dick man. Is that because you're a dick? And Jennifer's just having so much fun with pissing Olivia off, making her think that they have the weapon because she doesn't realize everything. And it was so beautifully done, of like Titans teleporting there. And then like Ramsey, like, all right, you got some music. It's like, my dad was into like country music and stuff. It's like, come on, dude, I need a good song to die to. And it's like that song plays twice. They do it. They do such a fantastic job with the songs. At first it's kind of like, even Ramsey's like, all right, I can dig it, and it's just like, yeah, it's just so good. I even love Cole making a reference of being like, Ramsey's like, okay, so how does this go? He's like, you just grab onto my hand, Thelma. And he's just like, ugh. And they splinter away. I'm like, oh, that's so good, dude. And then on top of all of that, once again, going back to what, Jennifer's one was really surprising to me, because like, I love her music choice of being like, what was it? Don't forget about me. And it's just kind of like perfectly timed with Deacon's return, because it's like, oh man, Adler died. It's like, oh man, this is the end. Like, they've got her surrounded. All the other daughters are dead. It's like, oh man, what's going to happen now? Lo and behold, who shows up? Max. I'm like, wait, what? With older Jennifer. I'm like, what? And then who comes to bail out Cole and Ramsey? Deacon. Once again, I keep forgetting, and I have to say it every episode. It's like I keep forgetting we're in 2043. I'm like, that's so good. Because I was wondering about the whole Deacon situation. I was like, I feel like you'd have to bring him back, but it's like, how would you go about that? Obviously, the vest is messed up, so like transporting him and Ramsey from the car exploding, it was like the last jump it had. I was like, so how do you get around that? It's like, oh, older Jennifer shows up and she went to Ramsey and explained everything, which later on, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. That explains why Deacon knew about what he knew. I was like, because he had the nosebleed and he gave the knife to Jennifer. That's how he knew, because basically his timeline had changed because of these events. I was like, that is so fucking good that you designed it like that. It's like, oh man, like I said, what this show does phenomenally well. You think things are like, you never got really a lot of context as to why that happened, what happened in that, but it's like, that's why, because he met older Jennifer who explained everything. They kind of, they do their thing, and like eventually Deacon from the last week's episodes, when he sacrificed himself and gave her the knife, is because he knew about this moment. It kind of basically had kind of been prepared for it for a good while now, so the whole situation with Olivia, she's kind of pissed at Cassie because Cassie got to live. For her, it's like, all I've been able to do is witness. Ever since she was a little girl, all she's ever done, growing up in this whole situation, all she's done is serve the witness. All of that has been for the purpose of her getting to where she needs to be with them. Because once again, she's a lonely woman. She's still that lonely little girl locked in a box because she never got to live her life. That's why she was so pissed at Cassie, because it's like, you got to actually live a life. I never had one. All of it's been, that's why she wanted the Red Forest so much. Once again, that was the whole thing. It's like she was lonely, and with the Red Force, she can escape her fear of loneliness and stuff like that. But I love, like, obviously the core goes boom and the tower starts leaning. I was like, oh, what's gonna happen? And then like Cassie pushes Olivia there and she gets hit. I was like, ooh, which is very serendipitous. Like, I mean, I guess because, Olivia is evil and everything, it's so serendipitous, because let's not forget, that's what Jones kind of did to her in season 3, kind of hooking her up to the machine. She kind of did a similar thing, but obviously this is a lot more painful because it vaporized the top half of her body and her legs just fall down. I was like, ooh, that's brutal. And it's like, I kind of wouldn't want you to go out any other way. I kind of wanted Olivia to kind of be dealt her hand in the most brutal way. And then comes the little twist of like, it's like 1894. I mean 894. It's like, what do we have to do in that time? Why are we going? I was like, she's a freaking origin. And then that line of just like, oh, Jennifer being like, oh, her eyes, it's like those eyes. Anytime she brought up Olivia, what did she always do? She always brought up Olivia's eyes. Just like, oh, those eyes. And then also like what happens, like, oh yeah, the virus lays dormant, a version of the virus lays dormant inside of her. And it's like, oh, like her entire life she's lived inside of a cage. I'm like, that's so good. Especially because even in death, she was still in a cage all her life. Which is also like, there's a little more kind of like to be frank, a little bit of more of a like, fuck you, because we know what happens to her as the origin virus. Like, Cole and Cassie and Jennifer burn it in season 1. So it's kind of like, which is kind of interesting considering her brother's there and she ends up stabbing her brother later on. It's just kind of interesting, which I feel so bad for the actress who plays Olivia. Like, once again, like, major props to her for playing a villain. You're just like, ooh, Olivia. Major props to the actress for playing such a despicable villain. I think she does a great job. I'm sure the actress who plays her is lovely, but it's just, I feel so bad because I'm up here talking mad shit about Olivia, but it's like, no, I'm sure the actress who plays her is just a fantastic woman, and it's just, I feel so bad about it. So I wanted to kind of throw that in there just for clarification as well. Because you always have to do that, because it's like, ooh, you hate someone as a villain, but you're like, ooh, I love you so much because you're just because I love it when you're able to feel it so viscerally. You're like, ooh, I hate this villain. I think that shows you an actor does an amazing job. And then came like, once again, like everyone's kind of like little breakdowns and stuff like that, where it's kind of like Deacon and older Jennifer leave because it's like, yeah, we got a lot of shit in front of us we got to go deal with. So that means that Deacon kind of has to live the rest of his life pretending like he doesn't know what's to come next. Like, he has to play everything out so that everything plays out, because everything is about getting Cole to where he is right now up to this point. And saying goodbye to Ramsey, I was like, oh my God, no. And Ramsey being the cool guy that he is, he's like, man, at the end of it, I was like, what do I got to do? Got to go back and get shot. He's kind of like, yeah, knowing you'll probably most likely miss. And when it comes time, he just kind of gets inside of the chair and he's just kind of laying back and everything. And then that final line of like, I'll see you soon. I'm like, oh, dude. and then Cassie and him kiss. I'm almost like idiotically skipping over the fact is the big moment because I knew it was coming, but it wasn't until she was right there in front of the panel when it finally hit her. It's like, no, we can be in Red Forest together. It's because it's like they've been through so much. It's like it's not fair. Like we haven't had a lot of time because their whole situation has always been very complicated. The times they've been separated too, so it's like we haven't had a long time to be together. So it's not fair that that's kind of being taken from us. Once again, it's like we're owed. But, Cole was able to talk to her. It's like, yeah, we can have forever. We can, have our son and have forever. But we live in that moment to the point we forget the feeling of what it felt like to be separated and then coming back to each other after being separated for hours, minutes, seconds. We forget that. Yeah, and it's something that Cole, future, asshole Cole, obviously, like our present Cole tells season 3 Cole at the beginning of how when it's like, you might like there is a beginning and there is an end, and you have now. Hold on to that now. And he was kind of able to reach Cassie by reminding her of that. Now, we may be able to have now. We may be able to live in that forever, but you can have forever or you can have now, because by having now you give it meaning, because everything being stuck in this perpetual forever, it loses meaning, like because of everything that they go through, the beginnings and it's even what he said when he proposed to her, giving her the ring, of being like, well, what makes sunsets so beautiful is because, well, the fact is it's because they said what makes the sun so beautiful is because it says there is an ending. And it's like their story is beautiful because it has an ending, because it makes it have meaning when there's an ending, and it makes it that much more special. But if you just have this forever moment, it just kind of takes away, like it eventually will lose meaning. It's like, why do, like, this moment of forever, it's fine at first, but then you just kind of get lost in it, and it just kind of like, it detaches the meaning behind it, And I thought that was so beautifully done, to the point he was able to kind of talk about. You kind of had a feeling, but it's like, I was wondering what he was going to be able to say, and I think that was beautifully said to kind of get her to back down. So I do apologize that I kind of had to circle back around to that, but saying goodbye to everyone, Jennifer being like, an actor doesn't say goodbye, they just go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again. And getting all giddy being inside the machine, she's like, yeah! Just kind of like when she first came to that time, it's just like, it's just so full circle. And then we finally hear the full message from Cassie being like, oh, it starts with Leland Goins, the fact of the matter is, we are the architects. And even telling Cole, like, yeah, death can be undone, but love can. And it's just kind of like, that's a final thing. And there's that moment between him and Joan. So it's like, I was like, please say what you need to say before she died. Don't let it be like she dies and she is. But it's like, for him, it's like, I never told you how much you mean to me. He's like, I had 2 mothers. And I'm like, it's like, oh, because he never outright says it these past episodes, but it's like, that's my grandma. And it's just kind of, you see kind of the awkwardness between them, because it's just like, they've had the relationship they've had anyway, but it's kind of awkward now, because it's like, now we know we're family, and sadly she dies, and he activates the machine. And that was like, I love how they visually represented that, and it was so beautiful, like the blue light, obviously being the complete opposite of Titan, but all like the blue light kind of being like these tentacles kind of representing it, seeping through every point in time, and everything happens. The reset, we go back to 2013 when Cole and Cassie first met, and I felt that was so beautifully done, because once again, it's like love can't be undone, because even remember, like this happened before with Cassie. It isn't just kind of out of nowhere. It happened before, because for Cassie, she would remember that time that was undone. So it starts sitting with her, and she's keeping an eye on everything. It's like, we don't, like, here's the family she never actually met. You have Jennifer running the Markridge company, ends up making a unicorn, so that came about. I thought that was kind of interesting. Interestingly, considering the fact is that, remember when they went to 2018 initially, it's kind of like, yeah, the place is empty because the Markridge kind of went under when, like, everyone's like, oh yeah, she talked about making a unicorn, so everyone thought she was a little crazy, so stops moment. But I guess it's like, no, when she kind of comes back at this point in time, it's like, oh no, I made it, so we're good. it's like Hannah, Elliot, and Jones are together. Sam and Ramsey are with each other. And then there's the whole, like, you see Deacon with his brother and then the older Jennifer nearby, that even under these circumstances, like, even though they might not have direct ties, that they are still there. There's Lampsky and Adler playing chess. Like, even like some people may not have ever meet in this particular new future, but there are people who still found a way to each other, essentially, and that kind of gets represented by the fact that. So I like to think that Jennifer and Deacon still found their way to each other anyway, you know. And it kind of hit you at first. Kind of like, I won't lie to you, I was tearing up. I was like, man, I was like, this is really how we're going to end it? I was like, that sucks, man. It's like Cole sacrificed everything, and it's like, yep, his reward was kind of getting deleted. I was like, that sucks. But I mean, he created a beautiful future. Everyone's got these happy lives. Cassie lives in a house and everything. Like, I would assume that does mean that Aaron's still alive, because I'm sure Aaron was the one that she was talking to. But still, now I will, well, I'll talk about it in a second, but she buys the house and she spends time there, and all she does is, as a doctor, she works and tries to help each individual person. And then lo and behold, Cole wakes up on the beach. I was like, wait. I was like, how did this happen? I was like, did time do that? It's like, no. Freaking Jones did, because of what Ethan said, that basically she modified the code so that the code, like, it would delete him from every point in time, but when it was all said and done, it would spit him out. He's in the Keys, which obviously that's the place he would go to, like, referencing all the way back at season 1. Jennifer's waiting for him there. So I guess the reason why she knew exactly where to go is because she is still a primary. I guess, like, even though they're primaries, that's still kind of a thing. It doesn't completely go away. And then it's like, yeah, time knows what happened, but time is like, yeah, it owed you, so here you are, and it's letting him have his life. It's like, yeah, you exist in this one piece of time, which is like, oh, so whatever. It's kind of like, okay, and she's like, go tell her, when you see her, tell her I said hi. And then he goes to Cassie in their house, which you can only assume that eventually they have Ethan and everything. And so the biggest question I have walking away from this, like, obviously the whole point was to kind of make everything go back to kind of lead to Cole getting to where he was, erasing him from all these different points in time. So it's like, the question then is, like, I guess that means that, like, he's kind of an anomaly, because it's like, well, because, like, I guess his dad still exists in this time. Maybe it's like his dad never had him, so it's probably like maybe he can go off and become friends with his dad, probably even work for his dad, potentially, could be what we end up seeing. Like, he ends up having a bond with his dad in that regard, because it undoes everything. Because everything was meant to lead them to that point so they can delete everything. But in some shape or form, it still kind of goes, but doesn't that mean everything still has to happen so that it could happen? So technically, it all still happened. It's not like it got completely erased, because for everything to lead to this point, it still had to have happened, right? Once again, it's time travel. So, but part of me is like, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking it's not. I think it is simply like, we're here. This is the only time period that exists, because she never met Cole. So that means it's like, no, what I just said is wrong. No, it is just like Cole was dropped in this particular time period. Like I said, his dad never had him because Hannah never went back and met. So it's just kind of like oh yeah, like I said, maybe he'll just meet his dad. I'm like, oh, so he has, which is so weird and awkward, because you're a man out of time and existence now. You weren't just a man out of time before. You were a man out of time before. Now you're a man out of existence. But I think even with this all said and done, I think each and every one of them still does remember, because they are a family. It may take a while before they find their way back to each other, because by the time Ramsey and Cole would end up meeting in this particular time period, like, you know, Cole would be a much older person too. So, because him and Cole never actually met, because Cole was technically never born and everything. But Jones kind of remembers, I think, because you see her reading the book, and when Jennifer's talking about it, you see a smile come across Jones' face about what she did, and it's like, yeah. So I think they could, like, maybe not everyone would. I think still Hannah would probably still remember, and, you know, I think some of them would probably remember on some level. I think no matter what, they would remember. So it's like this happily ever now, and I'm just like, I clapped. I was like, that is a fucking phenomenal way to end this series. I was like, that is so good. This series is just constantly catching you off guard with a little twists, it changes, like the whole concept of time travel. Like this is one of the series I can honestly say got me to love like sci-fi, love time travel. I think this was like the first time travel show I fell madly in love with. Probably like around the same time that like I was watching this was, no, I'll take that back. There was Doctor Who, but still like just a full blown, just all in its own. Like Doctor Who's kind of a lot more than just time travel. Like that's a whole. I'm not trying to take away from Doctor Who, and I'm not trying to take away from 12 Monkeys. Let's just leave it at the fact is I love this show. This is it's such a great ending, and it just kind of like I said, it leaves you a little sad at first, but then you're like they bring it together in the last few minutes to make you go yeah, fuck yeah. It's so good. And as I try to, typically do with these type of things, I send, wishing the best to everyone associated with the show, writers, directors, the creators, the actors, everyone that had anything to do with this project. It's kind of interesting because even during it, it's kind of like, oh yeah, make sure you see Amanda Scholl in Suits. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I have not watched Suits in a long time. I'm super far behind, but I do remember that like that's one of the first shows I ever saw her kind of pop up in. So I have not, like I said, I'm super far behind, so I don't know if she like circled back in the storyline like before now, but she'll definitely be in this season, so that's pretty neat. Even is it Todd Stashwick, the actor who plays Deacon? He's going to be apparently one of the co-writers on Suicide Squad 2, which is interesting. I remember seeing that on Twitter. I think was it one of the creators, Terry of 12 Monkeys, that tweeted that maybe? I can't remember who tweeted it exactly, but stuff like that. So I wish everyone the best going forward in their future endeavors. I mean, I would assume Ramsey would be the actor who plays Ramsey would be popping up in Arrow again, considering like Diaz's story is. And I'm getting all over the place. I do apologize. It's like let's just leave it at that and wish them all the best luck. This show from beginning to end has been nothing but phenomenal, and I'm so glad to have been presented this crazy and amazing ride to enjoy. It was it's so good. So, like I said, I'm a little sad just because it is over. No matter how perfect the ending is, there's always going to be part of me like, but it's over, which is a little heartbreaking. And it's hitting me a little bit now as I'm closing this out, but I guarantee you it really won't hit me until like I either, when this finally gets uploaded tomorrow, or when I tweeted out about this recording. But either way, I think that's when it's really going to hit me. That's usually when it does for these type of things. But man, I'm so glad this show existed. It's a freaking phenomenal story, dude. So I'll kind of leave it all at that, So, but till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.